Hello, in this video I would like to talk about Atlassian persistent storage, and we have three types of storage. The first one is key value store. This one appeared the first one and it looked like this. For example, let's see, we've got a key 1 and these are the attributes for the key, and we can write it into this key value storage. So this will be the key and this object will be the value. The main problem for me with the storage was that you were not able to query on attributes. You could not query, for example, all rows like this based on where the value 1 is for attribute 1. You were not able to do it. You were able only to query on the keys. For example, 1, this one would be 2. And you had to create the keys by yourself. Usually it was done by some kind of unique identifier. You couldn't sort things. And that's why eventually Atlassian announced a new persistent storage type called custom entity store. This one, we could compare it to some kind of relational storage, because when you defined entities, first you said, for example, the entity type is something like this. We could say that it's the name of the table. And then you also described attributes. For example, we could make a parallel as columns in a table in a relational storage. But again, the main problem about it is that you had to define the structure in the manifest.yaml file, and you could not use SQL. You could already query based on the attributes, you could order on the attributes, but that's actually all you could do, because SQL offers much more capabilities. And as a result, Atlassian announced a new type of storage, which is called Forge SQL. And right now I want to talk about this Forge SQL storage. I took an example of Atlassian. I will paste a link to this Atlassian repository. Let's try to understand how this storage works. First of all, you define that you are using the storage. It's SQL engine is MySQL. Then what was good about the previous storage? The key value storage, you didn't need to define anything in the manifest.file, only the permission to use key value, and that's all. In the second one, key entity storage, you had to define the structure. But when you installed your application, the structure was already available. In Forge, in SQL storage is different. You do not define the structure in your manifest.yaml. That's why when you install your application, you will not have your tables available immediately. That's why you need to create post-install schema migration, and then call this run migration function. We'll have a look at it a bit later. And this run migration function actually will create all the tables. And again, you also define a schedule trigger, which would run every hour, which would update, because, for example, you created an application and then sometime later you want to add a column or a new table, and of course you add it, but it doesn't mean that your application is reinstalled by the user. But this schedule trigger will pick up the new configuration and then install all the tables. That's why we need this schedule trigger. Okay, so what's inside this run schema migration? Let's find it's an SQL migration TS, and that's run schema migration. So what it does? It runs migration.run, then it lists like all the table. It's not necessary to list it, but you can see there what's being created, and then it returns a message that everything is correct, because this application uses also a web trigger to be able to trigger schema migration. That's why it returns a HTTP response. Okay, What's in run migration? Migration runner looks like this. It enqueues tasks. So you create the first task, like create user table, the second create books table, create loans table, and that's how you define the tables. That's basically a create table statement in MySQL, because SQL storage uses MySQL. And that's how the tables are created. You can create an index over here. You cannot create foreign keys, at least now when I'm recording this video, it's not possible. So that's how you create it. And if, for example, sometime later you want to add a new table, you just define this table over here, add it here, like dot enqueue and your table, and that's it. After you deploy your application, the scheduled job which runs 1 hour, pick it up and it will install it. So that's how installation works. What's the main problem about it? The main problem about it that when your application run and, for example, user installed your application and the user immediately wants to use it, the user will not be able to do it because the tables haven't been installed yet. That's why, for example, Atlassian did the following thing. Before running application, it checks has initial tables initialized. Let's see how it's done. It's done like this. It just receives all schema tables. So that's basically a usual show tables MySQL query, and then it gets all the tables, and then they check if books tables, like all loans tables, users tables are initialized, then everything is okay. If not, they will show a message something like we still are initializing the schema. And that's very important to do it. Otherwise, if the user runs your application, it will be a SQL error and it will not be very friendly for the user. So that's how you initialize the schema. And then when you work with the schema, you just create usual SQL queries. Let's have a look on examples. For example, here it is. For example, we want to borrow a book. We write an update query, and that's actually usual update query. It's insert into loans, user ID, book ID, values, and then these are binding parameters. Let's look, for example, user ID, book ID, loan date, return date, and then you take this borrow book, and then you bind parameters, these variables which are passed to the function. And that's how it works. So let's have a look right now at our schema. When we go to our developer console, we can see the new menu called SQL, where we can monitor our SQL, how many queries, all the things, and also we can see our schema. For example, schema details. And now I can see all the tables here. I can see the structure, and I can see table data over here. I haven't added anything here, but if I add something here, you will be able to see here the rows. The ability to see the rows is only available for development. It's not available for production. In production, you will not be able to see users' data. And one more thing about it is, like when you create a key value storage or entity storage, when you delete your application, your storage is still there. So when you reinstall it again, you will have all the data. SQL doesn't work like this. SQL storage will also be deleted if you uninstall your application. In some cases, it's good. For example, when you are debugging it, you don't need to delete something. You just reinstall your application and everything is deleted. But I guess for users, it will be not that good, because if they delete your application when install it, all the data will be lost. Okay, that's all. That's what I wanted to tell you about this SQL storage in Atlassian Forge. Thank you for watching. Bye.